Hey guys, this is Tom Bucks, and the video you've been waiting for, Fiendsmith Chimera. I've been cooking with this one for some time. I kind of overcooked the pot a little, but the main reason why I didn't showcase it to you guys is because I didn't have access to this card, which I only recently got my hands on. Shoutouts to Zach, shoutouts to Nishi for these cards, and yeah, this makes this card in particular, Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws, insanely powerful, to the point that it kind of has its own combo lines now rather than just relying on Mirror Sword Knight and stuff like that. So I'm going to showcase combo lines to you guys today. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you guys hit the like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. And you guys know I love this deck, so I'm definitely taking this to locals. At least I'm going to try it out for a little bit. I'm definitely playing it online. I've been testing. I've been winning a lot, but against Snake Eye Fiendsmith or Fiendsmith Yugioh, it is still a bit of a struggle, especially when they go first and you don't have the proper disruption. But this deck doesn't need to fully clear boards. Just keep that in mind. And check out MST.TV. These are the fire sleeves. They are available. Check out MST merch. Get yourselves some essentials as well, because they're really, really, really good. And in August, well, the summer sale is still going to go on until the end of summer. So we're also going to be launching new products soon. So stay tuned for that as well. And maybe we'll throw in bonuses in every order in August. I don't know. Did I just spoil something? I hope I didn't. And I'm also really tired, so I'm not retaking this. And so, you know what? Let's go through a quick deck list and let's go through some combos. Alright, let's kick it off with the deck list. We'll just talk about things that needs to be talked about in terms of changes, but for the most part, it's still a Chimera deck. So if you know how to play Chimera, that's great. If you don't, you should probably look up an older video. So starting off, we have 2 Nightmare Apprentice and 1 Sinkeeper. So for Apprentice, you cut it down to 2 now. You don't really need this as your key starter anymore, but it's nice to have, especially when you pair it with Gazelle. And a couple of these combos in this video are going to focus around that, and you can see how crazy things can go and how easy it is for this deck to kind of just pivot right into Fiendsmith and then pivot right back out. And for Diabelze going second, you should side it out, okay? It's just a little siding tip. For the illusions, we have 3 Mirror Sword Knights, okay? And then we have triple Kodal. If you can set up your early play with a Baphomet fusion, and then you just leave a Kodal in the graveyard, it will insulate your future plays from getting hit by at least 1 Imperm, which is nice. We also have a copy of Master's How, which is our monster reborn for illusions, which also locks us into illusion. And that part actually matters now because Fiendsmith, they are fiends, and therefore you can't revive them. Based on that, that now gets a little bit trickier to play, and you can trip over your own plays, and you could make procedural errors. 2 copies of Edgem Chain, we're still playing this because 2 Dark Fiends make an Aerial Eater, and now you get yourself a free Foolish Burial. With the free Foolish Burial, you get to make your entire line, I guess. It's a little bit silly, I think. I think there's just lots that you can do. And the MVP of the deck has to be Gazelle. Sometimes you Kodal into Gazelle because Gazelle can search for a level 5 Fiend, or the Chimera fusion, but regardless, either line will get you into a fusion because you were playing additional fusion cards in the deck. And once you start fusioning off the Gazelle, you know you're in a good position. So which level 5 Fiend are we adding? It's going to be Evil, Hero, Sinister, Necrom, and of course we have the 2 Big Wing Baphomet. Alright, Burfo is one of the cards that lock you out, so as a quick tip, try to use this as the final effect as a part of your combo, rather than at the beginning as a 1-card combo starter. Yes, if you have a short line to go for the OTK, go for the OTK because it requires the least amount of resources, but if you want to insulate your plays, you want to kind of make a giant cluster, whatever you want to call it, into your opponent and they don't know how to hit you, then you go for Necrom and you really just start messing with them, because you can add this card to hand, toss it into the grave, you open with this card in your hand, fuse it away. It all works out really, really well, because there are certain lines where you open with a Gazelle and it just doesn't feel very good because you have a Gazelle and like the fuse, so you want to fuse something useful. But Baphomet always gets wasted, so getting Necrom is like insanely good. And obviously, Necrom summons out a Dusted Gold. A Dusted Gold, lets you search for a Dark Fusion or a card that mentions Dark Fusion. We do play the Dark Fusion because you can fusion into a Fiend, which is mostly Baphomet and Magnum the Reliever, so you get a non-targetable versions of those as additional play. This card, if you are playing well, it should be bouncing in and out of your deck constantly. It will go from deck to field to grave, back into deck, because why not? And that's why this card is so amazing. And yeah, it's also your 1-card starter for any of your Fiendsmith line. We play 1 Lurie. You don't need to max out on Engraver, but we have 2 copies of Engraver. And now we go into spell cards. Spell cards, we play triple Chimera Fusion, best fusion play ever. Best back row. 1 Dark Fusion. That's right, you do play the Dark Fusion. There's a line I will show you. And then we also have 2 copies of Poly. Triple copies of Patchwork. Side one out if you are going second because it can get a little cluttery. 1 copy of Tract. 2 triple tax. I am still cheesing with a Call by the Grave, but why not? And then we also have triple Droplet. That makes up for some of the Board Breaker S cards, and as for like, you know, hand traps, change your line as you will. I do play more of them because I'm not just solely relying on the Chimera combo, because the Chimera combo kind of doesn't make it against Snake Eye Fiendsmith, so we're gonna go back into just shoving a couple extra hand traps in there for now. But we still have like the cheesy line of Chimera OTK, triple Ash, you know, and shout outs to my German friends who swapped with me when they were visiting. And then there's of course 2 Drone Lockbird, which could also be 3 Mulcharmies instead, but that's the main deck line. Okay, for extra deck, we have 1 Appaloosa, which we can summon quite easily thanks to Fiendsmith package. We have 1 Requiem, 1 Sequence, and 1 Muckraker. Muckraker you're going to use as a pivot and a way to discard some of your cards that you can just throw into the graveyard. This is really good paired with the Edgem Chains. But aside from that, this stuff should be kind of self-explanatory. If you open with Fiendsmith cards, you can quite quickly make an Appaloosa and then just play Chimera stuff because they're pretty quick for the most part. 1 DD Wave Viking Caesar and 1 Beatrice. I haven't really summoned Beatrice all that much. I almost wanted to switch this to Lars, but these are 2 cards I actually don't make all too often because I just think that just playing with fusions is very strong, but having it is, of course, really nice. I mean, if you manage to break a board and finish with a Wave Viking Caesar, you can secure a game very easily. As for Chimera cards, we have 1 copy of Chimera, King of the Phantom Beast. We have 2 copies of Baphomet, the mythical king of the Phantom Beast, and we have Chimera, the Illusion Beast, and we also have Guardian Chimera. So these are the Chimera monsters that you have to play. Baphomet is going to be your main one. You almost feel like you want to play 3 copies because it is just so good. Being able to dump whatever you want into the graveyard, that always gives you a follow-up. It's literally the almost equivalent of like having Beatrice. This is your Beatrice to some degree. So these are your key, I guess, Chimera monsters. As for the remaining monsters, you have to play Magnum the Reliever. Note that this is also a light Fiend monster, which allows you to pivot into that particular line, especially when you get hand trapped to the ground. It is one of the few ways that you can actually do it. And then we get to play, of course, 1 Lacrima and 1 Aerial Eater for the double Dark Fiend fusion. I haven't really used it all too much. I don't think it's that necessary. So as for the final monster, is the Synchro. We have Chaos Angel. We can still make Chaos Angel. There's light, dark, dark, light, dark, light, light, and dark, dark. Yeah, there's just every attribute possible combination for this card. What I want to point out are the optional cards, being 1 being Aerial Eater. But you will cut yourself off a line. You're going to cut yourself off of the complete Fiend Dark attribute line, which is an odd break from time to time that you might hit. And the other one that you don't really need would be this. You can switch this for what's his name, Desiree, and you can definitely switch this for something else like a Lars if you want to get a little bit more security, you want to play a little bit more negate-y. That's completely up to you. But like, you know, they could be contradictory to play like an oversaturated amount of negation, but that's the extra deck. All right, let's go maximum board with the Gazelle and Nightmare Apprentice. Note that you're not always going to end on everything here, but sometimes you can, and you can just use the additional cards in your hand to kind of bait. The cards in your hand that aren't part of your combo will be used as bait against your opponent to waste their cards and hopefully help you kind of extend or waste some of your opponent's resources so you can simplify the game state. So let's start with the Gazelle. Normal summon the Gazelle, and assuming everything kind of works out or you already have them in hand, you go for the Necrom, add it to hand, and then you're going to send Necrom into the graveyard for the effect of, or rather the summon of Nightmare Apprentice. Apprentice effect, we're going to add Kotal. Kotal is going to be sent to the graveyard to get Mirror Sword Knight, and you have a pretty decent start already. And now we're going to banish the Necrom from the graveyard to summon out the Adusted Gold. This immediately lines you up for the Fiendsmith line, so we can summon out our Requiem through the Adusted Gold Link summon, and then Requiem effect, we're using that to summon out our Engraver from the deck. So current hand, 4 cards with the Mirror Sword Knight kind of stuck in hand, like very quickly actually. We're going to take the Apprentice and the Engraver, we're going to link them away into sequence, And via Sequence's effect, we're going to put back our Requiem and our Gold. And that's going to help us summon out Lacrima. Let's go back. Lacrima effect, we're going to add the Engraver back to hand, and we're going to activate the Engraver from hand, all right? And that's going to help us add Fiendsmith Tract, and activating Tract is going to help us add the Adusted Gold into hand. We're going to throw a different card into the graveyard. Whatever that you have extra. If you make it all the way here, I don't think you're supposed to be losing, because like full combos in any deck usually is just too much for the opponent to really play against. And this also lines you up for a very quick Desiree play if you need to, because Adusted Gold, oh, you can't summon it, but yes, we can throw it into the graveyard, which allows us to summon the Engraver back from the graveyard. So Adusted Gold effect, we're going to use that to add Dark Fusion into hand, which means we've already set up our Gazelle for a Baphomet play right here, and this is one of the nastiest plays already. So from here, we can just put back the Adusted Gold and summon out the Engraver via its own effect. And look, we're set up for Desiree for negation if needed. And one of the lines you can go for would be to overlay these two, make a DDD Wave Hiking Caesar, and if you want to go for maximum disruption and that's the matchup you want to go for, then go for it. Otherwise, you can use something a little bit more simplified, which is to take all of your monsters and just make an Appaloosa, because we're not fusion restricted yet. And that is probably the easier line. But let me just show you the more complicated line, because anyone can make an Appaloosa. And we're going to make ourselves, you can make a Beatrice if we need to, but we're going to go into DDD Wave Hiking Caesar, and we're going to leave the sequence here for now. Next, we're going to activate the Dark Fusion. We're going to fuse away our Mirror Sword Knight and our Gazelle, and that's going to summon out Burfo. Summoning out Baphomet, I'll probably go Chainlink 1, the Burfo, Chainlink 2, the Gazelle, because at least this card cannot get Imperm, because Dark Fusion does not let the monster that summon that turn to be targeted. So that's a great way to kind of line up your play. For the Gazelle, we're going to search for our Diabels. As for the Burfo, we're going to dump into the graveyard the Master Tau. Master Tau effect, we're going to summon back the Mirror Sword Knight, which has not used its effect yet, and we're going to activate Mirror Sword Knight, using that to summon out Big Wing Baphomet. Baphomet effect, add the Gazelle and Chimera Fusion. So this is now our hand, and we are just really loaded to play. So there's many different things you can do here. If you want to burn more of your resources, or you want to draw an additional card, then one thing you can do is to just activate the Chimera Fusion, and we're just going to fuse away the Diabels and the Fiendsmith sequence, and we're going to turn that into Magnum the Reliever. Activate Chimera Fusion's effect to add it back to your hand, because we're going to set this card back onto the field. But before we do, so note that we're live for the Chimera Fusion because we have a Gazelle in hand right away. But the additional thing is to Magnum the Reliever. We're going to put back our Dark Fusion into the deck, to the bottom of the deck, and then we get to draw an additional card. So that's kind of the fun of this particular part. Setting the Chimera Fusion, if you want to lock your opponent out immediately from accessing, well, any other spell cards that they can activate, you're worried about, you know, Droplet or whatever sort of big play that they have, then you can immediately just activate the Chimera Fusion. Let's look at the actual disruptions that are available at hand. By just activating a fusion on these two, you can just get the hand rip right away, and you get to put the Diabelze onto the field. So that would be an all-in commitment. It's still playable, but I would rather secure an interaction with the Chimera Fusion as a priority, because it's just better and more flexible for you. Okay, so alternatively, you can start your line with the normal summon of a Gazelle and use that to grab Chimera Fusion. From there, you can use the Apprentice, discard a card, summon an Apprentice effect, grab the Kodal effect, the standard Mirror Sword Knight. So from here, you're going to activate the Chimera Fusion. You're going to fuse the Gazelle and the Mirror Sword Knight into our Baphomet effect and the Gazelle effect. You're going to grab the Master Tau into hand, and then Burfo is going to dump into the graveyard the Necrom. Activate the Necrom, summon out the Adusted Gold. So over here, it's kind of safer, more or less insulated from Imperm hitting your sequence. So you're going to link off the Adusted Gold into Requiem, and then we're going to activate Requiem. That's going to summon out the Engraver. You have a choice. I think we're going to leave this up just so that's safer, so we can link these two off. And that's going to set up the Fiendsmith sequence. You can use Sequence's effect now. And we still want to grab ourselves a Poly too. Well, you can grab back your Chimera Fusion first. And then you can use yourself a effect of Sequence, put back the Dusted Gold and the Requiem. Use that to summon out Lacrima. Lacrima effect, we're going to add the Engraver back into our hand. We're going to ditch it. Fiendsmith's Tract. Activate Fiendsmith's Tract, add back the Dusted Gold. But we have to discard a card, so we're going to discard something random. We don't want to discard Tau in this point, because if we discard Tau, we're not going to summon back our Engraver, and that kind of sucks. So we're going to ditch whatever extra card we have in our hand, and now we're going to activate the Dusted Gold. That's going to give us the Dark Fusion. Next, we're going to use the Fiendsmith Engraver, or if you want to pivot into something else, just know that unlike Snake Eyes, this deck does have locks and things to consider. So you are locked into certain like lines and sequences. And so now you can put the Dusted Gold back. See, this is what I mean by it keeps on popping in and out of the deck. Summon back the Engraver from the graveyard. And here you can just overlay the two. I think we're just going to keep on doing the overlay play, even though you can quite easily just make Appaloosa with the negates and whatnot. It's like nice to have double hand trap negation. So we're just going to go with DDD High Wave King Caesar, because Nibiru is also a thing in this current format. And that kind of loads us up for basically every play we really need here. For now, we can just activate the Dark Fusion. And use Dark Fusion, Master Tau in the sequence. Put this onto the field, which is going to be the Magnum the Reliever. And that's going to activate Master Tau. Master Tau is going to summon back the Mirror Sword Knight. And from here, we can just go with the rest of it. But let's get ourselves an additional draw. The Magnum effect, bottom deck the Dark Fusion, draw an additional card. And Mirror Sword Knight, Burfo, summon out Burfo effect, grab the Gazelle and the Chimera Fusion, letting you work with 2 Chimera Fusions, and you have the Gazelle. Probably should just play one of them for safety reasons, get the hand rip, simplify the game state. I mean, the game state is like pretty solid, also really in your favor. You have a lot of disruptions against your opponent for the most part. But in any case, this Gazelle's not going to fetch you anything because you already used it earlier on in the game. So we can just activate the Chimera Fusion, fuse away the Burfo and the Gazelle, and go for the Hand Ripper. And with the Hand Ripper, you also get Burfo effect. Burfo effect, summon back Mirror Sword Knight. And that sets up the turn pretty well, I would say. Just in draw phase, make sure that you use the Mirror Sword Knight. Or you can just not summon this and just, set a card. But, this card automatically trades you for 1 card. Just set the Chimera Fusion. You have 2 additional cards in hand. This next one here, let's eat some hand traps. Let's eat double Imperm, Imperm Veiler, Imperm Mourner, whatever it is. Starting off with the summon of the Apprentice. And we're going to send a card to the graveyard. A lot of the times, this card does get hit because it searches you for anything in the deck, and for good reason. It should be hit anyway. And from there, you have multiple things you can do. If you have Mirror Sword Knight and you know that your opponent cannot win against the Chaos Angel, you just go whoop straight into a Chaos Angel. But, this is double Imperm, so we're going to go with the Mirror Sword Knight effect, and through that effect, we summon out Big Wing Burfo. Big Wing Burfo attempting to search, that's going to be met with a second Imperm, so this is the double Imperm we've got stunned out. So what's our kind of rotation? Where do we go from here? We're going to perform a Link Summon. This is where Muckraker comes in pretty hard, and Muckraker effect, and if you already have some level of polymerization, then you won't need to do this additional step. But for this particular part, let's say that we don't have anything. We've eaten most of the hand traps. We're going to ditch the Ejim Chain, okay? Ejim Chain, we're going to summon back out the Burfo from the effect of Muckraker, and Ejim Chain is going to activate, giving us a copy of Fight for Patchwork, which we will immediately activate the Patchwork to give ourselves a copy of Polymerization. And we're also going to add to our hand another Ejim Chain. Now, without Aerial Eater, we can still do something by going straight into Magnum the Reliever through these 2 monsters. But now that we have Aerial Eater, we can actually hold onto this Edgem chain by just activating the polymerization. And through the polymerization, we can take 2 Dark Fiends, including the Underworld Goddess, or rather the Underworld Muckraker. And that lets us summon Aerial Eater. Aerial Eater effect, we're going to put Necrom into the graveyard. We're going to activate Necrom, summoning out a Dusted Gold. A Dusted Gold gets summoned. A Dusted Gold gets link summoned into our Fiendsmith's Requiem. Requiem effect, that's going to summon out, and this is also in the graveyard by now, that's going to summon out our Fiendsmith Engraver. Now you can overlay these two, just make a DDD High Wave King Caesar, that's fine. Note that we are Fiend locked, so I'm going to avoid summoning anything that is not Fiend. So we're going to link some of these 2 away. Note that we've already burned our opponent's 2 Imperms. If they have triple hand trap, they have triple hand trap. At least it's more or less a simplified game state. So from here, we go into a Fiendsmith Sequence. We're going to use Sequence's effect. And we're going to put back the Requiem and the Dusted Gold. Note that if you're breaking someone's board, when you get to the Engraver, you can use the Requiem to kind of send a card away as well. And we're going to put back, of course, the Dusted Gold and the Requiem. Summon out Lacrima. Lacrima effect. We're going to add back the Engraver. We're going to send the Engraver back into the graveyard to get ourselves a Fiendsmith track. Activate the track to get ourselves a copy of the Dusted Gold. And we're going to send the last unknown card into the graveyard. Activate the Dusted Gold. Get ourselves the Dark Fusion. Next, we're going to put the Dusted Gold back once again. Summon back the Engraver. Overlay these 2 into our DDD High Wave King Caesar, and then play the Dark Fusion here. And we're going to get rid of our Sequence and our Edgem chain, and that's going to summon out our Magnum the Reliever. Magnum Reliever effect, we're going to put the Dark Fusion back to the bottom, and then we're going to draw a card. So this is how we can work around and kind of cycle a few things. Activate the Fiendsmith Sequence, and we're going to equip the Magnum Reliever, because that's also a light fiend, and this will make it untargetable. So these are some of the things that you can work around. Yes, we burned a lot of cards. Your opponent also burned a couple cards, but at least we have some cards that we can work with here, rather than having absolutely nothing. And maybe the top deck you just grabbed is something useful. So this is one of the ways that we can kind of mess around with the combo if we do get like overly negated. All right, for this final one, we're going to have the Gazelle combo. We're just going to go Gazelle, and we're going to be able to poly it off with a Necrom. And say we have to add the Necrom. Say it's like something like this. So normal summon a Gazelle, and say it was successful, or you already had it in hand. You get the Necrom, we're going to play poly, and we're going to put all of these cards into the graveyard. That first monster you're going to have to summon likely is going to be Burfleman, because Burfle gives you the largest chain of stuff to happen. So it's going to be Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. Gazelle is going to add your favorite illusion monster. That should be Nightmare Apprentice. There's no other one that should be your favorite. And then you have the Burfo. Burfo should be launching into the graveyard a Kodal. On an opening play, this now helps you block against lots of imperms, whatnot, and this is your current board. Technically, you do have additional cards in your hand, so if it was the 2 cards, whatever, let's just say that we have like 2 additional cards, which still makes sense. From here, we can just activate the evil hero Necrom, and we're going to go for the Adusted. Did I just put the Adusted in hand? I did, so let's just put a different card in hand here. And a Dusted Gold, coming from the deck, gets summoned onto the field. We're going to perform the regular Fiendsmith stuff that we've already seen so many times. Going to Requiem, Requiem into Engraver. And from here, we're going to summon out our Apprentice, ditching one of our additional cards in hand. Apprentice effect. We're going to use this to grab a Mirror Sword Knight so that we can summon it out later. Look, it's going to be a little bit of a setup, okay? And now we can take both of these, a Light Fiend and another monster, and perform a Link Summon into Fiendsmith Sequence. Sequence can use its effect, and luckily we're not going to get impermed along the way. We're going to use sequence effect. We're going to put back the Requiem and the Adusted Gold. Adusted Gold, and just such a good card. Here, we're going to go into Lacrima. Lacrima is going to add the Engraver back to hand. And we're going to activate this Engraver to add the Tract into our hand. Alright, now we can activate the Tract, get the Adusted Gold, and we have to discard a card. We'll discard the other random card. And from here, Tract has been activated. We're going to activate the Adusted Gold, get ourselves a copy of Dark Fusion. Put the Adusted Gold back, and we get to summon back the Engraver. This time around, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to start off with a little bit of Beatrice action. Or, yeah, we're going to start with a little bit of a Beatrice action. It's a little bit safer. We just start with a Beatrice right here. And then we're going to play Dark Fusion. Dark Fusion, we're going to fuse the Mirror Sword Knight with the Fiendsmith sequence. And that gives us Magnum the Reliever. Use Magnum Reliever effect, put Dark Fusion back, draw an additional card. Activate the Beatrice now. And you can use that to drop off Master Tau. Now that we don't need the graveyard anymore, Master Tau can summon out our Mirror Sword Knight. Mirror Sword Knight effect. Summon out Big Wing Burfo. Wherever our Big Wing Burfo is, there it is. Big Wing Burfo effect grabs ourselves a Chimera Fusion and a Gazelle. You can immediately just play this Chimera Fusion. Fuse these two away. Go for the hand rip. Chain link 1, 2. Well, Gazelle has already been used, but Burfo has not. So chain link 1, 2. We're going to summon back our Mirror Sword Knight. We get to do a hand rip. And don't forget to use your Chimera Fusion effect to put it back in your hand and reset it back onto the field. And this sets up your board for a lot of stuff. And even with the additional Beatrice, there are things you can do with the extra Beatrice. Like some people play Farfa, so they can use it to, you know, banish a card as an actual disruption. Some people use it to load the graveyard with the Diabelze, so that when you fuse away your Chimera, you get to just immediately just summon another stun, another disruption. That's what it's for. And you know, you still have a Chimera Fusion to go into Guardian Chimera. So that's it. Those are the lines I'm going to show you guys today. That's all I got for this video, but I do want you guys to take notes on a couple of things here. Number one, which is the end boards, they all kind of feel the same, but that's kind of the point. Even for like Fiendsmith, Snake Eye, or just Snake Eye in general, they always try to end on a very, very similar board, which does operate with a decent level of control. And this deck in particular basically always does that, and that's kind of the point. It's not really about the end goal, but more about how you navigate your journey to get to that end goal. And it's not like a solid combo line that you have to follow, you know, play for play. It's how you can maneuver around and still get to the end point. That's what you should be doing with this deck. Make it less predictable for your opponent to play against you. And maybe the balance will adjust it. And this deck is like one of the better ones because it's very much future-proofed already, because there's already been Fiend Illusion typing announced for future fusion plays. So this is something I'm really, really looking forward to. And hopefully you guys are just as interested as I am. And maybe you can use these combo lines to kind of help you diversify your own existing lines. Remember, it's not about always achieving the same line, because if it's up to me, if I see an open board, I'm going for Chimera OTK. Just be smart about it, all right? Thank you guys for watching. Check out MSTmerch.com. Check out MSTmerch.com because it really helps support. And don't forget about that car crash thing that happened to me. Yeah, I was still in the middle of recovery, you know, and I appreciate you guys for, you know, supporting the channel through MST Merch. And that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.